Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's amazing panel discussion event. I'm Eric Feldman from FIU in Washington, D.C., and this session is the very first session of a 3-day DC fly-in seminar that we have in partnership with our Black Student Union. The 3-day seminar is on breaking generational barriers to Black leadership, and this session is our executive leadership panel. FIU in Washington, D.C. is the home of our government relations and student support operation here in the nation's capital. We work with our congressional and federal agency partners on FIU research and student success priorities, and also support all of our students in internship and career success. On that topic of internship and career success, all of the organizations represented on our panel today have fantastic internship, career, and/or fellowship opportunities. I'm pasting into the chat links to all of those opportunities for your perusal as you become very interested in these organizations today. In addition to these 3 organizations, which I will introduce imminently, we have an information session this Friday with another great nonprofit partner, the Partnership for Public Service. We have 3 current FIU interns there, and they and the recruiter will be speaking Friday about that internship opportunity. And the applications are now open for our DC semester program, the Hamilton Scholars Program. You can learn more about that at hamilton.fiu.edu. It is my truest pleasure, I'm perhaps the most humbled I've been in my FIU career, to introduce today's panel. We have a few great individuals joining us today. Tanya Visky is the president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. She spearheads the foundation's mission to advance the global Black community by developing leaders, informing policy, and educating the public through CBCF's initiatives aimed at broadening and elevating the influence of African Americans in the political, legislative, and public policy arenas. For more than 20 years, Ms. Veasey has provided counsel to top corporations, nonprofits, public entities, and elected officials in issues management, crisis communications, corporate social responsibility, and diversity and inclusion strategy. She began her career successfully working to influence this local, state, and federal public policy, securing public funding for healthcare programs and social impact initiatives. She's worked as a legislative staffer and nonprofit organization leader, and a registered lobbyist as public affairs director of a Fortune 500 company. For her success as an entrepreneur and commitment to the community, she was honored by Fort Worth Business Press as one of 2017's Great Women of Texas, and that publication also named her one of top 20 women to watch in business. She also in 2011 received Dallas Business Journal's Minority Business Leaders Award. Ms. Veasey earned an executive MBA at Texas Christian University and a bachelor's degree from Paul Quinn College. And I have to congratulate CBCF on a successful 1-month-long virtual conference that just took place over the past month. I've seen many, many great conferences across DC, and a month-long conference is a particular accomplishment. So congratulations to all of CBCF there. Gloria Blackwell is the Senior Vice President of Fellowships and Programs at the American Association of University Women, AAUW. Blackwell is responsible for designing and implementing initiatives to expand women and girls' opportunities in non-traditional spaces through leadership and oversight of $4 million in fellowships and grant programs, designing and executing a comprehensive set of programs to reshape girls' and women's experiences in educational and career settings, and direction of the organizational-wide integration of fellowships and programs into every dimension of strategic and operational plannings. Blackwell also serves as AAUW's UN main representative, leading global initiatives implemented through collaborations with UN bodies and global coalitions. Before joining AAUW, she was Director of Africa Education Programs at IIE, the Institute of International Education, which FIU also works very, very closely with. She has also managed fellowships and programs during her decade at IIE and has held positions as a Peace Corps staff member and volunteer in Africa. Her master's degree is from George Washington University and bachelor's in international affairs from Georgetown University, and she studied at American University in Paris. Thank you for being here, Gloria. And Angela Saylor is vice president of the Fullner Institute at the Heritage Foundation. She's an executive with 20 plus years of experience delivering measurable achievements in both in-house and advisory roles. Most recently, she served as deputy to Heritage President, the Honorable Kay Cole James, and as a public member of the Senior Foreign Service Selection Board at the U.S. Department of State, and an adjunct professor at Georgetown University's Continuing School of Education. Serving in the White House Office of Public Liaison, Saylor successfully formed coalitions to support presidential policy initiatives while driving stakeholder support and advancing strategic communications to traditional and niche markets. Her portfolio included domestic policy directly impacting the African American and senior citizen communities. She served as Deputy Chief of Staff to the United States Department of Education, Office of Secretary Rob Page. In this role, she had oversight of the White House initiatives on educational excellence and higher education, as well as the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives. She's been on the front lines working of the election of conservative leaders as National Coalition Director, Department Head, and Senior Advisor at the Republican National Committee. She held oversight of 3 departments, including coalitions and constituent services and the RNC's internship program. She also served as Director of African American Affairs for George W. Bush's 2000 presidential campaign. To briefly mention her private sector experience as well, as a partner for Watts Consulting Group, where her clients included John Deere, NASCAR, Strong American Schools, and Wells Fargo. Her Juris Doctorate is from the University of Memphis and a master's degree in broadcast journalism and public affairs at American University. She's married with 2 children. And of course, our moderator today, is Charlyn Stanberry, our own FIU law alumna, currently serving as Chief of Staff for Representative Yvette D. Clarke of New York's 9th District, who serves as the Vice Chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Previously, Charlyn served as a legislative director in council, where she managed the representative's legislative portfolio and oversaw her committee work. Her JDs from FIU's College of Law, and she has a bachelor's and master's of public administration from the University of Central Florida. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to get out of the way and turn this over to Charlyn.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. Just wanted to start off by saying it's an honor to moderate this panel, especially with 3 amazing Black women. So as we typically say, it's Black girl magic this morning on this panel. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So for FIU BSU, we're talking about breaking generational barriers to Black leadership. So this morning we have 3 amazing Black women who are in executive leadership roles. So I want to start with Tanya because I am a product of the Congressional Black Caucus. And so with each of you, just tell me a little bit about your organization, your current role, and the path that you took to get to your current role now today.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation. This is a great panel, and to Gloria and Angela, I'm honored to be on this panel with both of you as well. I will tell you, of course, our mission at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation is to develop global Black leaders, as well as to create policy and research around Black issues that affect the African American Black community. And so for me, this journey has been really interesting. I think Eric had an opportunity to talk a little bit about my career, but I always like to start before I found myself. You know, I'm the youngest of 10 kids. My mother was a widow at the age of 34 with 10 kids with no degree. And we moved to Texas where my grandmother helped my mother raise her 10 kids. And my family poured everything into me, you know, and so they made lots of sacrifices for me so that I could go off to college and that I could get my master's degree. And my mother did a lot of praying. So you can't have 10 kids and be a widow and not pray every single day. And so for me, I grew up in a home where it really was a village, if that makes sense. Like it really, really was a village. And so for me, I grew up with a level of understanding that I had to give that back. And it was interesting because as I graduated from college and I started my first professional job, I've always had great mentors to help me through this journey. And I don't take it for granted because I could have been a statistics just based on what my teachers thought and what others thought of me. And so having the opportunity to work for the CBCF really I felt was God sent. And the internship and the fellowship program that we have, I see so many young women who remind me of myself growing up, right? And so it's these young women who a lot of them are the first still today to graduate from college, and they just need that opportunity. So I take this position very personal, right? I take it personal. It's not a position that I like the title of. I actually like the work that we do. And my team will tell you, I get involved in a lot of the planning. And so for me, I think the journey was really having people who saw things in me that I didn't see in myself to begin with. But also the journey was when I had opportunities, I worked my butt off. To be honest with you, I tell people all the time, you may be smarter than me in the room, but you're never going to outwork me in the room. And so I served on the CBCF board for a few years before I was asked to step in and lead this organization. And I was actually asked, and in many cases when I've had promotions or had other opportunities, it was someone saw my work ethics and decided to ask me to step into other roles. And so serving on the board for several years, we'd had a lot of transition at the CBCF. I had always been a trusted advisor to the board president or some of the board members. And a board member, our chair, Representative Cedric Richmond at the time, asked me if I would come in and help assess the foundation and help him figure out what are those things that we need to do to make sure that we develop a strong infrastructure. And as I said, in many cases, when I show up, I show out. And so I had an opportunity to come in for 3 months. I presented a plan to the board, and the board looked at me and said, why don't you do this for us? And so it was one of those things that I was a little intimidated. We can talk about that later, but I was a little intimidated and decided to go out on faith. And I've been in the position now for about 7 or 8 months, and I've enjoyed every bit of the work that we're doing there, again, because I see so much of myself in so many of the interns and fellows that we work with.
That's awesome. Let's go with Angela.
Well, thank you. Thank you to Eric and FIU and to all the panelists. And I'm excited to be here today. Tanya struck some chords with me as I was listening to her. The journey to the position that I hold at the Heritage Foundation as the vice president of our newest institute, the Edwin J. Fullner Institute, has been in the making for a long time. And I too like to kind of step back to give some, to kind of put a face on what I'd call my career path. When I was very, very young, my aunt used to say, Ann, she called me Ann, Ann, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd rattled off, I'm going to be an elected official. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be in media. I want to own a business. And she would just shake her head and smile and say, and how do you think you're going to do all of those things? Well, my career has allowed me to really experience all of those things that I was rattling off to her at a very young age. And I give so much credit to my mother and my grandmother who only had a 6th grade education, and my mother who was the first in our family to get a PhD, the first Black woman to get a PhD from the University of Michigan in her field, which was a combination of English and studying dialects. And so I experienced kind of firsthand a single mom who was married at one point, who decided she was going to go back and climb. And I got an energy from her to, along the way, to always kick down a door and to continue to keep walking no matter what it looked like. And so my career has really been one where I've been afforded the opportunity to start new initiatives. So I kind of joke with myself that I'm the new initiative person. And that really started after after the early part of my career, where I had been at Black Entertainment Television. And at that time, BET was a very, very new company for the country with a different mission as you looked across the spectrum of the broadcast industry and what it was doing. But inside of that, I was given the mission or the assignment to go to predominantly white markets and market Black entertainment television into those communities. And so I call that kind of a startup because I was the first one on the team to really try to go into those markets and do that. And I bring that up because it really establishes a foundation of what I'm doing today. I have been, over the course of more than 20 years, bringing people together and having conversations to find common ground. So I did that as well when I was at Procter & Gamble, and I was trying to go into grocery stores and elbow out space for my displays, for my paper products. I did the same thing when I came to Washington and started working at the Republican National Committee. I went in as a focus point of trying to get new people to the table to talk and have conversations and to build relationships. The same thing of working in the White House Office of Public Liaison. We called it the People's House. And my job was to be the welcoming mat for people into a conversation on policy and to talk about building bridges and alliances across the country based on the president's policies and the rollout of those things. So here I am now, having launched a new institute at the Heritage Foundation, and we are almost a 50-year-old organization, and our president, Kay Coles James, who is the first woman and first Black person leader, I'd say, to run this organization that has been named the #1 think tank in the world for policy impact for the last 3 years under her leadership. And her vision, as having sat on the board of the Heritage Foundation for 13 years prior to taking that position, was to incorporate into the bloodstream of the organization a vehicle to really get out of Washington and to connect to local communities and leaders, and to connect to people around their stories of how policy has really influenced their lives. And so that's what I spend most of my time doing right now. And I'm still building this out. Tanya talked about how she was new in her position. We are almost a year old, and we've had incredible success with bringing center left and center right folks together to talk about really tough issues, but in the spirit of looking for solutions. And so, as I say, I'm a startup. I start things up, but I'm also a person who works to build bridges and alliances.
Wonderful. Gloria?
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be in such amazing company here with Angela and Tanya. So I'm the Senior Vice President of Fellowships and Programs at AAUW, also known as the American Association of University Women. And, it really, for me, is a pleasure to be a part of, such an historic organization. AAUW has 170,000 members, donors, and supporters, and it really is an organization that focuses on gender equity for women and girls, and we utilize 3 pillars of education, advocacy, and research, ensuring that our programs and our advocacy are all derived from fact-based research. We are a nonpartisan organization, but we are not values neutral. And the foundation is giving opportunity in the beginning, in particular, for women to pursue higher education and We also look at issues, not just as women's issues, but issues that impact our communities and our societies, and really touch the fabric of us all. AAUW is also an organization that, in my particular role as Senior Vice President, and I'm also the United Nations representative, I really have the pleasure of providing opportunities for women and girls and young women to engage in activities that really help them along the path to determine their future careers, to give them the training that they need, to provide funding, which I'm sure so many of you on this Zoom know that funding is incredibly important as you are, matriculating and, trying to ensure that you can continue your education. And so, it's been almost 140 years, and AAUW has provided over $120 million. And, I'm extremely proud to be a part of an organization that was started by women, funded by women, continues to be funded by women, to ensure that women have economic opportunities. And I think the other piece around this part, my particular position at AAUW is that I really have the opportunity to pursue something that I became a very strong believer in from a very young age around the importance of education. I think, like a number of you, I was a first-gen college student, and it was pretty much assumed that I would be going to college even though no one else had gone to college. Right? So there was this assumption that it was just going to happen, and apparently it worked out okay. And the importance of education and my role really gel because I have the opportunity to see how education has such an impact on women being able to move themselves and to move their families forward. I have been at AAUW for about 15 years, and during that time, my team has awarded over $60 million in fellowships and grants. And that, to me, is just an incredible accomplishment. And to see that so many of those women are Black and Brown women, and that we have programs that in particular look at the challenges that women face, whether they're starting a new career, returning to the workforce, whether they're in a field where Black women are traditionally underrepresented. So that's been extremely gratifying. And my path to AAUW was not so linear in a way. I knew that I wanted to be engaged very early on, not just in education, but also, I learned to speak French when I was in middle school, and it really became sort of the driver of me having being a global citizen before anyone knew what a global citizen was. And so I really, I went to Georgetown, and my primary goal was that I was going to be a diplomat. I was going to travel the world, and I was going to speak French to everyone and make peace, and that was going to be my job. But it turns out that I actually was greatly influenced by being at Georgetown to a life of service. And that's why I went to the Peace Corps. And being a Peace Corps volunteer in Africa changed my life. And so I saw the importance of education. I saw how the lack of access to education impacted not just women and girls, but societies as a whole. And so that led me on a route focused more on education. And I get to fulfill that dream every day at AAUW as I see whether I'm working with my UN colleagues or with my AAUW colleagues, just how access to education or how funding can really transform people's lives. And that for me is really something that I could not have imagined that I would be, a senior vice president. I never aspired to leadership, and I came to leadership like many others here because, someone gave me opportunities. Sometimes I just took them. Sometimes I stepped into spaces where I wasn't exactly sure, but I figured it out. And that's something that I really encourage others to do. And I also had people who ensured that I had what I needed and gave me advice and counsel, and also really gave me the sense that I wasn't alone. And that was really important as well.
That's wonderful. And just want to acknowledge that Eric put in the chat box that if you have any questions throughout this discussion, that you can drop it in the chat box and I'll acknowledge you. So we're seeing this common thing about service. This is the theme that we're seeing right now with these three wonderful women. So the next question I have is, why is it important to have Black leaders in the C-suite and in executive leadership positions? So anyone that wants to take that question, feel free.
Well, I'll start off. I think, of course, and we all know this, when you invite diversity at the table, you get diversity of thought, you get diversity of opinions. I think it's very important to make sure that Black women in particular have a seat at the table. I think I can't remember what year, but several years ago, Forbes magazine published an article about companies that have diversity at the table in the C-suite perform better than companies who do not. And so the data even tells us, right, that if you're worried about the bottom line, then data says that by having that diversity, you do better. I think in particular, when you have Black women at the table, because we see that what's going on currently politically, right? So Black women have come in and literally saved parties and candidates. And, you know, we're all nonpartisan here. So I'm just talking about just facts here, not any particular candidate. But I think Black women have a very unique skill set as well. We're able to balance many things much better than not only Black men, but just people in general. I think emotionally, we're able to take on more than most people do. And so I think by having examples and leaders that have those types of skill sets, emotional intelligence, whatever you want to call it, I think it's a win-win for everyone. I think we are also, and I don't have the data, but I would say, in speaking with other Black young women who are getting their careers started, my experience has been that Black women who are at the top are more nurturing and willing to mentor and work with other young Black women to get them where they want to be. It's not, you know, we all have probably stories of not having that happen, but I think we also have many stories of that also being a part of our career advancement as well. So I think, again, I go back to the Forbes magazine article that says diversity is good for any organization. And so I would say that's an important reason why it's important to not only just have diversity, but have Black women in those seats as well.
Anyone else?
Yeah, if I could, just another thought around the leadership in the C-suite. I agree with everything that Tanya said, but in addition to that, one of the things that I have had to kind of deal with in my career was a family. And I remember, you know, when I had to make some really tough decisions. I was Deputy Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Education. I went in with the thought that I was in line to become the Chief of Staff and discovered I was pregnant. And that really wasn't a part of my strategic plan to have a second child. My first child was, you know, I was able to just grab her and go. I mean, I figured this thing out, how to work, have my daughter, feel like I was, being present as a mom, but now I was with child again. And as I look at the dynamic of that and the decisions I had to make, I had to decide, where were my priorities going to be, juxtapose the dreams that I had, and where was I going to make those sacrifices. And what I have seen with women being in the C-suite, Black women being in the C-suite, and kind of that diversity of viewpoint about family and how that works, is I've seen over the past 20 years more compassion coming from the different organizations that I've worked for, based on the experience of those leaders to understand the dynamic of different families and how they operate and those needs. And so as a woman, I love to encourage young women and even young men who are looking at their careers and trying to kind of map out what that's going to mean for their dreams of having a family and raising a family. I think that the increased perspective in the C-suite has given us more flexibility and leadway there. And I encourage all, as you are pursuing your careers, to lean into that and continue to build that out, because we also know that happier families make happier executives, and organizations are healthier when those families are strong at home, in addition to being able to support the work that they're doing.
Gloria, anything you'd like to add?
I would add that, part of being a Black woman leader also is about sort of breaking down the assumptions that so many people have about who Black women are, what we can accomplish. And, being there at the table is really important. And also now, as we look at, diversity, equity, inclusion seems to be everywhere we look. I mean, part of it also is having the capacity, sometimes whether you like it or not, to sort of hold your organization accountable, so that it's not just, checking a box or lip service when people say, this is what we believe in, this is what we're going to do. And I think it's really important, particularly if you are in a predominantly white organization. But there is that fine line of being the Black woman in the C-suite between having to, represent all Black women and also being sort of in charge of fixing the problems that you didn't create.
Wonderful. So we actually have a question from one of our students. So I'm going to give the floor to Travis Dozier.
Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Dozier. I'm the graduate assistant with FIU in DC with my colleague Eric and my boss Carlos Becerra. I'm currently pursuing a master's in international and intercultural education with a certification in African and African diaspora studies. A little bit about me: I spent 10 plus years in the military, and I did some working in between before I decided to go back to school. But my question is directed to Mrs. I spelled your last name incorrectly, so I apologize to Mrs. Veasey. I would like to know, is there a pipeline to encourage our young Black teenagers to be interested in public policy? And if there's not, I have an idea later.
Okay, wonderful. And that's a great question. I would start off by saying we don't do enough. And I'll be honest with you. In regard to, as the foundation, we really focus more on college to graduate students and our fellowship and internship program. However, we do work very closely with each Congressional Black Caucus member's district office. And we work very closely to make sure that they are communicating to the local high schools about our scholarship opportunities. And so we give out close to about $1 million each year in the members districts for high school going into college students. We also, doing our annual legislative conference, our spouses put on a essay contest that's for 11th and 12th graders, and it's various topics, and they can write about various topics. We picked 3 finalists to come to DC in their family. We provide them with airfare and accommodations for them to come to DC, and doing a luncheon, they actually will present their essay, and they receive funding for that. But to be honest with you, there's more that we can do. We always look for organizations that are doing a lot of the work from K to 12, in which we are here to partner. We talk a lot with those institutions through a lot of our virtual issue sessions or brain trust. But in particular, do we have a particular, I would say, focus? We do not, but we do support those that are doing that work. It's almost a handoff. So we support those that are doing the work from K to 12, and then they hand them off to us, and then we prepare them to be able to afford to go to college, and we prepare them for internship opportunities and professional development opportunities to develop them as the global Black leaders that we know that are out there.
Thank you, Ms. Veasey.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Travis. So next, I would like to acknowledge Ms. Amber Robinson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Robinson, and I'm a junior double majoring in English and economics here at Florida International University. And my question, as aforementioned, like in the chat, is that Ms. Blackwell stated that we are not values neutral, and considering that her association is nonpartisan. For everyone, how does being a Black woman impact the presentation of the juxtaposition of your values to that of your respective association or organization? And I know that there may be overlap in answering that question.
Okay, I'll go first. Thank you, Amber, for your question. A few years ago, one of the things that AAUW engaged in was a values task force to really do deep internal work about what the values of the organization actually are. When you have an organization that also has, 1,000 chapters across the country and has, 800 college and university partners and such a myriad of folks who believe in equity and want to be counted, it's also about who are we as an organization, not just what do we advocate for and what are we doing on Capitol Hill. And so initially one of the things that drew me to the organization was that it aligned very closely with my values around human rights and around ensuring economic opportunity and access, around intersectionality, around being empathetic. And so for me, I see on a daily basis that the organization has made a deep commitment to not only sort of stating what our values are as an organization, but essentially, putting into place practices that are going to help live them each day. And like many nonprofits, particularly those that do not have, that have a large white membership, we've struggled as an organization of a perception of being exclusive and not being inclusive and inviting. And, I'm proud just to be a part of the way that the organization is looking at being more inclusive and sort of translating the work that we have done to provide access and opportunity, particularly to so many Black and Brown women, and to have our membership really reflect that, and also to provide education so that, we really are living what we say we are as an organization. And it's not an easy task. Many organizations, have certainly been called out for practices that people see as being contrary to what their values are. And it's not easy work.
I would add to that, it was very important to me as I was considering this opportunity with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, that the foundation shared my values. And as a matter of fact, as I have begun to work on bringing new team members to the organization, one of the things we really focus on is what are our core values as an organization. And based on those core values, we hire, we promote, and we fire people based on, do we share those same values? I sit in a very unique seat, and I'm so grateful for it, that the people that I work with look like me. The people that I report to look like me. The people who I help look like me. And so I don't have some of the same pressures that many other people do when they're put in a position and the people around the table do not necessarily relate to what's going on. So I can remove all of that particular pressure and really show up and be very authentic and be very focused on what is most important. And so, the core values of the public policy work and the research that we do truly impacts the Black community. The leadership programs that we offer truly impact the Black community. And so as we begin to bring partners, not just team members, but as we look at our corporate sponsors, I am now talking to them about mission and core values and making sure that we align in that way. And that's a unique place to be. And it's somewhat of a scary place to be as well, when your job is to raise the funds as well. And we've actually had some opportunities this year to turn partners down based on the fact that we didn't believe that they really believed in our core values. So we've all received those phone calls that said, hey, what can I do to help? I have $100,000. But we want to make sure that before we take your money, that we align with our mission and our overall core values. And so it's not easy, but I think it's something that's very important, especially where we are currently with just the environment that we're facing right now.
And if we have time for me just to jump in with a couple of remarks to that question, values, I think, for me, values are everything. And our organization is about policy entrepreneurship, if you will. And what we do in the institute that I'm running is we are really, our mission is to reach wide and far to get people to the table to talk about policy, to talk about the practical things that will bring about solutions in people's lives. And the value of freedom being a theme across the policy initiatives for people to have choices, to be able to empower themselves, their communities. One of the things that we did at the beginning of this year that was a big initiative for us as the Heritage Foundation is we put together a working group on historically Black colleges and universities. And we brought to that table people who had a mission of wanting to bolster the institutions, the HBCUs. And we had to, some people at the table had different approaches towards that, but what we were able to agree on, and this is where we get kind of into the value piece on the solution, is that HBCUs should be bolstered as making great contributions to our global competitiveness and our military preparedness. And so we're able to, through values of sharing values towards that end, towards what the American identity is, to bring people from the private sector, the public sector, local communities, national leaders, to put on a conference, to have those discussions and to convene people who could continue outside of that conference to promote those things. And so one of the things that we are really excited about in partnership internally with our Davis Institute is being able to go on the HBCU campuses with other partners and really connect to the ROTC programs and create more awareness about opportunities towards jobs, positions, leadership roles as it relates to our military preparedness. And again, shining a light on bolstering different communities as assets towards who we are as Americans. And so again, I'm really excited about that and continue. And that's just one example, but the value of bolstering different pockets of our communities as assets, I think is very important.
Thank you. These are some great questions. So next, I'd like to acknowledge Chloe Little.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chloe. I am a senior studying international relations. Foremost, I like to identify myself as an artist, but definitely nowadays in a James Baldwin way, where I feel compelled to question the answers that are given or presented to me. And with this in mind, I know that I definitely want to pursue a career in law and advocacy, specifically international law on a global scale. I see myself as a global citizen, very similar to Ms. Blackwell, when you mentioned your time at AUP studying in a different nation truly gives you a unique shift, a paradigm shift from my American experience here. But I find shifting from being an artist to now global citizen activism, I'm sure you all have dealt with moments of feeling overwhelmed in how to go about your careers. All of the women here, it's truly an honor. This is a dream. I'm super excited. It's a humbling experience, but your careers are so saturated and full, and I'm pretty sure I have many shifts and transitions ahead of me, but I do feel like a sense of urgency to get involved in not just my own local, national situations, but on a global way. So I have been considering opportunities like the Peace Corps or trying to apply for the virtual opportunities with the UN. But again, I know there's time, and I can't wait till I get the opportunity to be in your seat one day. And I'm just curious to see how would you recommend taking the next step? Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. I definitely relate to your sort of wanting to have the answer to figure out like what you should be doing now. But I think what's interesting now is that, you know, the world of work is really being redesigned. You know, it's one of the, you know, perhaps it'll come out as one of the benefits of the pandemic that we are seeing that all of the preconceived notions that we have about work and about motherhood and about being in an office and about, you know, how businesses need to pivot, everything is really changing. And so, you know, as you're starting to think about what that career will look like, for me, it really looked like how finding what it is that I really wanted to change. You know, finding out sort of what were the things, and I speak the words of one of our AAUW alumni, Dr. Tara Trent, who encourages all of us to find out what our great hunger is, find out what is the thing that breaks your heart. You know, very often that's the thing that we would like to change, and that's the thing that will give us the greatest fulfillment. And so I still spend time educating myself. I still spend time stepping back and taking a look at where I am and what my goals are. I'm a mother of 3, and I've managed to, I was a Peace Corps volunteer early on, but I've traveled to over 30 countries in Africa, traveled all over the world being a mother. And so the meshing of those things was possible. And, I have my youngest daughter actually is an artist as well, but she's also interested in environmental justice. How do you marry the two? One, by educating yourselves about what the options are and talking to people. And also knowing that because things are changing so quickly, you have the opportunity also to try things out at different moments. And so she's trying different things out to figure out what fits. But also, I haven't taken it upon myself to try and change so many of the systemic problems that we have. I think that's a burden that we all, particularly those of us who grew up in a different era, have tried to take on those systemic institutions by ourselves. And it's a burden. And I think, finding out how you can partner with others, learn from others to bring about change has been really, really important. And so starting is just learning, taking a step back and finding out what is it that is my great hunger.
Charlyn, can I jump in on that?
Absolutely.
Chloe, I know that you didn't direct it to me, but one thing that I think is really important, I can see the passion in your eyes. I know that you are headed to some amazing places in your life and in your journey, but do this as well. Look around the world at the different leaders who you've got great respect for right now. Make yourself a list and reach out to those people and ask them to mentor you or to have a conversation with you. One of the things that I can say for sure through my career, it's been the relationships and having the courage to just pick the phone up or write a letter and ask people to be a part of your journey. And you will be amazed at how many people will just say yes. And some of those relationships may, return an investment, a return on your investment immediately in terms of that relationship. And some of them will come full circle many years later. But as you're looking at the world and where you want to go, grab on to some of those people who have trailblazed and that you've got great respect for, because they will pour into your life and they will make it a part of their mission to help you be successful.
All right. So I think we have time for one more question before we wrap up. I just want to check with DeJuan Jenkins. Did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, I was wondering if I could work with any one of your organizations to kind of like spark up my cartoon for kids to understand like policies and what's going on, so they won't be lost. And so like since we got the technology to do it now, we can start showing them at an early age about what's really going on in life instead of them watching Nickelodeon and things like that. I think it's just a big distraction from what's really going on in the real world. And they need to learn at an early age about like how to buy a house and how to increase their credit score and just how to live peacefully overall, no matter what job they have. I already started my label a little bit because of my major, but I haven't like finished everything. I'm still studying. I'm a junior at FIU, majoring in sustainability and the environment. But nice meeting y'all.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would love to talk to you. I'm going to give you my email address, which is angela.saylor@heritage.org.
Hold on.
Okay.
Can you put it in the group chat because I need to write
Sure.
that down.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll put it in so you guys can continue talking.
Okay, and yes,
Right.
I would love to talk to you more. One of the things that we're doing through our institute is we are trying to look at innovative ways to communicate policy, and particularly in the area of civics and helping young people understand our form of government and how it works. So again, thank you for your question, and I would love to follow up with you.
Thank you.
And I know that we're, oh, go ahead, Gloria and Tanya, if you wanted to add something.
Oh, I wanted to thank Dewan as well. Absolutely. One of the things that we can all be doing, and I really applaud your sort of looking at technology, looking at something as important as educating young people through a means that's going to reach them and provide them with valuable information at a very early age. I think that is something that we need more trailblazers working on, you know, using technology, using media, and providing information in ways that's really accessible for younger children so that they have a base of knowledge on so many things that, you know, many of us didn't learn until we were adults. So definitely I'm interested in finding out the work that you're doing. Thank you, Dewan.
Thank you, Ms. Gloria.
I would say the same. I think we're all interested in learning more about the work that you're doing. We have our Leadership Institute. We're always looking at different ways to communicate public policy issues to a younger generation. I think the gentleman earlier challenged me just a tad bit to say, how do we get more engaged with some of our younger K through 12? So this may be a great opportunity for us. So definitely, I think we'll share our contact information and feel free to reach out. And I have a marketing background, so I'm a little interested in how we're going to market this tool that you are working on outside of this small group. So I want to chat more about that as well.
Okay, because I started developing over my time at FIU because I got I'm more of a writer, so I don't talk much or anything, but I like writing and everything to express my thoughts and what was going on in my life compared to everybody else life around me because I'm from Jacksonville and it's very poor, I guess, so called, and I'm just trying to change up how everything is going because I see nowadays how I was brought up and music and everything is kind of changing kids' minds, making them want to do things wrong, and I don't associate like that. So I just want to change up the theme of America, basically.
Wonderful. I look forward to speaking with you.
You too.
And Dewan, I'm from Jacksonville, so I'm a proud Duval County person. So we're glad to see you on here. So just want to thank our wonderful panelists. This has truly been enriching. I know we have way more questions and we could be on here for a while, but it's been so uplifting and heartwarming to listen to you three. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. I'm gonna lead it off, give it back to Eric. And for all of the BSU students, just letting you know, if you need their contact information, if you have any questions regarding that, that is something that Eric can assist you with. But just thank you once again. I'm doing a hand clap from my house for our wonderful panelists. Back to Eric.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlyn, so much for moderating this fantastic discussion, and to Angela and Tanya and Gloria for participating and consistently supporting FIU, not just for this panel, but many other events and fellowships through all three organizations that FIU students have done and will continue to do. The questions here were so fantastic, and between the moderated conversation and hearing the connection to some of our students' goals and projects, I think this has moved into the top spot of the highlight of my time in DC so far. So it's a great way to start the morning, and I appreciate it so much on behalf of the entire FIU community. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Y'all have a good day. Oh, wait.